So I have that it's 5:45, and I also, keeping true to form, will talk a lot. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're just going to have a lot of fun along the way. So quick reminder is that you need to check in for your attendance purposes. This will help verify for your professional development credits, and also it gives you access to all of the handouts. This PowerPoint is uploaded on the Capitol Conference page, and then I also have a series of handouts that at the end of everything you can come and pick up a paper copy of the packet, but also they're available digitally for you on the website as well, in case you want to steal any of the stuff that I'm going to be referencing. So don't forget that these are here, because I can guarantee you that I will. This is a session about building a program up from nothing. My name is Michael Allen Donaldson. I'm the speech and debate and journalism coach at China Spring High School, where I'm also the UIL coordinator. We are a solidly 4A school district in the Waco area, and I look like I'm 12 years old. Like, I look like I could be like a demonstrator for an A+ session, but I really am a coach. I'm going on year 3 at China Spring and year 5 of coaching, so I'm super excited to be working with you guys. So the big theme around this is that we can't always get what we want. Like, we want to believe that if we go to bed, and right before going to bed we pray really hard, we are going to go to school the next day, and we are going to have tons of money in our travel account, and our administrators are going to give us anything that we ever need, and all of the kids are going to want to drop out of every other extracurricular activity to join UIL academics and speech and debate. And that would be awesome. But that's not really the reality for us. So sometimes we inherit programs that are either non-existent or they're in a state of chaos. You can walk into a program that still is going to tournaments and still is going to district, but it's just the Hot Mess Express. Over time, budget money will magically disappear from UIL academics, and the academic team or speech and debate will go to the wayside. Kids, teachers, administrators, they just forget about what it is, why we have it, and why it's so important. It doesn't become a priority. The purpose of this session is to engage us all to take an opportunity to, first of all, take stock of where your program is at. What do you have? What are you lacking? And together, we're going to try to figure out how we can get what we need. Now, there's no secret formula. There's no recipe that works perfectly. I can't tell you that this will work 100% for your school. But what I have found while working at China Spring is that these are some methods that I have stolen from other people, or some things that I've shared with other people that seem to work. So steal what you can, and together let's open up a dialogue to see how we can make these ideas, or any ideas that you come to the table with, even better to help our programs get stronger. So the formula is pretty simple. I have boiled it down to 2 points. Planning with presence will equal success. You can separate all that it takes to have a thriving program into 2 categories: planning and then your presence. And we're going to separate all of these individual components in this presentation into those 2 schools of thought, and then combine them together to see what the outcome can be. So I think the first thing that we do when it comes to planning your UIL academic program, or your speech and debate team, or even if you're just an individual coach of a given academic event, is to come up with a theme. Let's kick it old school. Having a yearly theme gives your team a rallying cry, and it gives your team a sense of unity. All right, we just got our little letters to us as teachers talking about in-service, where they announced the theme of in-service. And while I'm sitting there like, it's June, please let me enjoy my summer, that gets me excited, because I know, oh, this is what they have in store for us, right? We know that we're going to go and learn how to teach like a pirate, or we're going to be every child's superhero. That same school of thought works when it comes to giving your team a sense of unity. So you want to come up with something that will allow them to identify specifically, oh, that's what being in the UIL team this year is all about. It doesn't have to be something cliche. Like, I would avoid them. Like, your old school, rah, 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 we're the best. Like, okay. But sometimes you want to be cliche. Like, sometimes you want to be ironic and make it seem like something like, oh, wow, that's what the UIL kids do. They're kind of nerdy, but I'm down. And that's a different thing that you can go with. But you want to make it something fun. You want to make it something that's engaging. And most importantly, I have learned, is you want to make it something that is easy to hashtag. Like, I look like I should be really into social media and know how it all works, but like I got a Twitter this summer and I'm still figuring it out. But I have figured out that hashtags are like a pivotal part of making sure that you have this like digital footprint. So you want to come up with something that isn't 50 lines long. You want to come up with something that is easy for people to remember. This is the team. This is what we're all about. Use your theme as instant advertising for your program. Come up with something that maybe relates to other programs at your school or your overall district message, but make it something that they know, oh, that's not the track team, that's not cross country, that's not the band, that is what the UIL team is doing this year. It should be a hook that makes your campus and your community immediately think of your program. Okay, and we're going to go over a couple of examples that we've used over the years at China Spring and at Hillsborough when I was there. But I think that this is something that you really can't stress enough. If you preach it enough, if you highlight it enough, if you show it to your coaches and your administrators and your students and your community members, they will begin to identify that idea, which hopefully is positive, right, like just the disclaimer, as that's what that UIL program is all about. And if they're organized enough to have a theme, then they must be pretty good. So we have a couple of examples here. Hamilton was a really big thing. There is a band called The Darkness that has a song called Nothing's Gonna Stop Us. I love Ann Richards unapologetically to the point to where it kind of weirds some people out. And everybody wants to go to Austin, right? These are all abstract concepts, like a 4-minute long song, a Broadway musical, the former Texas governor, in Austin, Texas, where state is. Like, these are all things that we can talk about, we can give giant monologues about. We can preach to our children like, well, this is what Ann Richards did. Or Hamilton was groundbreaking because of this. This is my favorite song. Or here's a cool music video. We can talk about that, or we can boil it down into something that's easier to digest and easier for kids to identify with your program, to make it individualized to what you're trying to do. One of the best things about themes is that they make a great starting platform for t-shirt designs. I am not creative, and I am not artistic. So when it comes to having to make a t-shirt, I'm like, why? Coordinating t-shirt orders is a beatdown. Like, let me be upfront, if you've never done that, it's horrifying. Like, it is just very, very stressful. It doesn't make you a lot of, if any, money. Like, my goal is to not lose money selling t-shirts. And it's easy to get lost in the process, but it really is worth it, okay? For some reason, having a shirt for your kids, for your coaches, giving a shirt to your administrator, seeing those shirts out there in other places, really makes people take pride in that organization. It's instant advertising, yeah, because it's like literally they're showing off your program, but more specifically, it's something that they can say, this is something that only the UIL team has, or this is something that only the UIL team really gets. Find a designer and a marketing company that you like and stick with them, okay? Find somebody that works well for you. Find somebody who works well with your school district, maybe somebody in the community. If you have a digital design class at your school district, maybe they can come up with the art, and then you just need to get somebody to print the shirt. Figure out what you want to do and what works and stick with it every time. So I team up with a company called Hole in the Roof Marketing, which is in Waco, and this is like a shameless plug for them because they have been absolutely phenomenal every time. They know us. They had no partnership with China Spring prior to me getting there, and I just Googled marketing companies Waco. But now they are willing to do anything and everything for us to the point that we ended up finalizing a design for our current events team that was going to state on like a Monday. They had all of the shirts printed ready for us to pick up on a Wednesday, like of that same week. So you want to find somebody that you know will be able to help you. And this goes back to the theme. Oh, well, actually, before we get to that, and this is something that like just will really help your program. Guild and Soft Style t-shirts are just like 1/2 of a step up from your traditional t-shirt that every single organization will sell. It's like maybe 5 cents more if you're mass producing them, and it makes a world of difference in the sales and people wanting to join your program. Like at China Spring, everybody just kind of had like pieces of metal that they were wearing as shirts. And so when I came in and had the soft t-shirt, all of a sudden everybody was like, wow, I don't like talking in front of people, but debate sure does sound fun because they wear soft clothes. And then they found out about like dressing up and stuff, and that was its own nightmare. But that's something that you can use. And we're going to transfer the theme over into t-shirt designs to make it instant advertising and to make it something that people really feel comfortable with wearing. So these are all of the same things that we discussed on that other example slide. Those abstract concepts. And Richard's is a quote. The here and now is all we have, and if we play it right, it's all we'll need. And our theme for that year wasn't hashtag Ann Richards, it was hashtag here and now. Well, that's pretty cool. Like, the here and now is all we have, and if we play, like, wow, like I'm feeling inspired. And so that was something that building a program from scratch, it made it seem like it was going to be difficult, but if we worked hard, we were going to be able to find success. And by constantly preaching that message to the kids, they really internalized it, and we did find some success. This is one that I didn't show earlier. I love Napoleon Dynamite. And so we just put a Napoleon Dynamite quote on the back of our debate shirts this year, that if you vote for me, all of your wildest dreams will come true. Like, that's a really like kind of ironic debate shirt, and the kids loved it. And it's on this soft shirt, and everyone's like, ooh, it's minimalist, let's go with it. So this is something that's getting kids interested in the program. That album by The Darkness, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us, it's got this kind of like almost 80s feel. And so the t-shirt designer listened to the song and was like, well, let's give you a kind of vaguely 80s looking look. And the kids were like, I've never seen this before. This is vintage. And they were about it. And so all we had to do is put hashtag nothing's gonna stop us now. And that's just very vaguely on there. And the kids were like hyped. They were really buying into this whole thing. Our theme for current events, and my current events coach was awesome, and she worked really, really hard, and she had her own theme for the team this year, and it was Road to State. Like, I don't know where she got the idea that these kids were like so talented from the very beginning, but that's what she said. Every practice, it's the road to state, it's the road to state. And we were fortunate enough to qualify to state in current events. So we took and did a silhouette of the Austin skyline, and we made it Road to State on that shirt. And that was something, like, that's one of my favorite shirts. Like, it's just cool. And then with Hamilton, back at Hillsborough, and I actually wasn't there for that. I have to give credit to Amy Kasperzik because she designed this one. But they took the Hamilton logo, and they replaced the top of the star, which in the logo is Hamilton, and they put a debater with a gavel and a briefcase or a flow pad, whatever you want to call it. And then they put Rise Up, which is the theme in the show, but it's also a theme for what they're wanting to do. They're going to rise up against adversity in the district. We're going to rise up to meet the standards that our coach is laying down for us. We're going to rise up to reach new heights. And they did. And they were super successful. So the theme is something that's going to connect your team and your program together all of a sudden, and it really builds unity from the very beginning. And that's a crucial point. People want to be a part of something that feels coordinated. People want to be a part of something that it feels like there's a game plan. And I will be the first to tell you that while I want to pretend that I'm organized, I never really have a game plan. But I'm really good at coming up with themes. And so this year our theme is another song, and it's Don't Ever Think Too Much. And that's going to be my mantra, and hopefully the kids can take it and they're not going to stress out a lot either. The next thing we can do that I think everybody's like, where do I start? Is with setting goals. Look at your previous year's records and see or get a general idea of what the trend is for your campus. Where is your campus strong? Where is your campus weak? Has it always been like that? The UIL website lets you archive individual district results and region results and state results back several years. And if you have a hard time navigating the website, they will help you. And so one of the things I did when I got to China Spring was I looked up the past 4 years. What's the trend here? What events are we successful at? Is it just a fluke or is it a consistent thing? What events are we struggling at? How can I work on that? How can I fix it? By understanding where your program has been, that will give you a good starting point to figure out where you want to be and what is reasonable. I would love to say that we, a school that does not have a computer science team, is going to go to Computer Science State next year. But that might not be feasible for me. I can set a goal based on where I have been, though, that will help the kids get a better understanding of what is obtainable and let it feel like they have accomplished something when they reach that goal, which they have. Like, if you are literally going from not having a team to having a team, you have accomplished a great deal. And you want to be able to highlight that when you're talking to the kids and talking to the administrators and bragging to the community, so you have to have an understanding of where you have been. You need to set a realistic goal for yourself in the first year of starting a program or joining a program or revitalizing a program. Is your goal to enter a full team in either a specific event or the entire academic contest? That was my goal. Prior to me getting to China Spring, we were not entering full teams. And the only thing I wanted to accomplish was we were going to have a full slate of entries. Now, they might not be the best, but by golly, we are going to be represented in every single slot we have. And that's a victory. That's improvement. Is it advancing more kids to the next level of competition? Or in speech and debate, getting more kids to finals? So the district that I have been in and am continuing to be in is a beatdown in prose and poetry. Like 2 years now, our district has had finalists in prose and poetry at state. So for me, in interp, my goal is not, I'm going to go and win state this year in prose. Like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But my goal is, I want my prose kids to be in district finals. Because it's tough to do that. And that's an understanding of what we're up against. Is your goal to close a point gap? So another thing in our district is we have a powerhouse journalism program. One of the schools in our district is just insanely good. They're very well coached. It's an empire. And so my goal when I took over journalism this year, because I don't really know what I'm doing, is, well, I just want us to get second place, but by a little bit less. Let's make it closer this time. And what do you know? We were, instead of having an 80-point gap between the first and second place journalism team, we had a 76-point gap. And my kids, because I told them, I was like, all right, we're going to have some good stuff happening to us, and we're going to bring in some medals, but just do your best, sweeties. And like, we had some kids go to regionals, and they were excited about that. But when I told them and I did the math, I said, okay, 76 points. You would have thought that we had just won like a national championship in something. Like, they ordered pizza to celebrate this second place victory. And I was right there with them because that was our goal, to close the point gap, to advance more kids. And those kids were so excited for that second place, which on paper doesn't look like it's any improvement from the year before, but we knew that because we were open about our goals. Be upfront with your administrators and your coaches and, to a certain degree, your students about what your goals are. You want to advocate for those goals all season long and push your team to reach them. Okay? It is not fair to your students to sit there and say, we're going to win state. We're going to win state. We're going to win state. Our goal is to win state. Our goal is to win state, because they are young. And when you, like my first year, I made this mistake. I had all freshmen in CX debate. And CX was my thing. And so I was like, we're going to win state. We're going to win state. We're going to win state. Like, just trying to hype them up. And we got a team to state in CX, which was awesome, freshman boys. And they were just like, I've never been outside of China Spring. What is Austin, Texas? And we went 2-2 at state, which was awesome, especially for freshmen, brand new to the event. But they felt like they had failed because they didn't win state. They weren't in the out rounds. They felt like they hadn't satisfied me, when in reality, I was just like about this. Like, I was hyped for these kids. But I made the mistake of telling them, like, what we have to do is win state. You don't want this to feel like a job for your students. Similarly, be upfront with your administration. Tell them, and I've had this conversation already, we were really successful last year, and we're going to be successful this year. We might not be as big of a gap between first and second place, even if we try our hardest, even if miracles happen, because we graduated this kid and this kid and this kid, and this team is weak, or we just got a brand new coach here who doesn't know what they're doing just yet. Be upfront. That transparency matters, because if you are leading your administration to believe that you are the cat's meow, which you all are, and that you are working nonstop, which you all are because you're here, and then something doesn't happen, if your administrator doesn't play the UIL academics game, then they're going to sit there and say, well, what do you mean? The football team won. What do you mean the poetry kids aren't going into the playoffs? Which is its own discussion of itself. Be upfront with everybody about what you're trying to accomplish. You have to make a decision. So we started a computer science team. We were the only computer science team in our district. So our goal was to enter kids. They were district champions with a team score of 12. And they were loving every second of it. Our goal was to be able to get a positive team score, which we did. It was looking kind of iffy there for a while, but we did, and they accomplished that goal. Next year, a goal. I entered my accounting team in an invitational tournament, and we're in the large school division, and my accounting team, who kind of knows some things about accounting, not really, walks in there, and another team looks at them and says, man, these guys look like chumps. Well, I mean, it's an accurate depiction, but my goal then needs to be to protect their egos some, because they are trying, and they were working, and they weren't good, and they knew it. So to hear that, while it might be truthful, hurts them and doesn't make them want to come back and rejoin the UIL accounting program. So my goal this year, and my goal as soon as I heard about that, is to tell them, no, what you're doing is good. And we're looking to improve the score on this accounting test from the last invitational. And at district, we want to improve. And we did. We weren't remotely close to placing at that invitational tournament, and then we went on to win accounting district. So you have to preach to your kids what these goals are. And then, and I know that I'm getting some skeptical looks right here, some of us are motivated by this goal, which was, when I got hired, the conversation my principal had with me, which was, and I quote, the one trophy we care about is the district academic championship. And then he smiled at me, and he said, by the way, you're hosting district. And I was like, I've never done this before, please help. But we did, and it was okay. So, understand what your goals are, be consistent with them, and let the kids know, okay? Hype them up about them, and attach yourself to them. Next, how can we work with our coaches to reach those goals? What can we do to engage our coaches behind our program? Well, number one, have enough. And I don't have, I have been fortunate that I walked in and there was a program, and so there were some people that are returning. But I had a huge problem that for a school of our size and a faculty of our size, it didn't make sense that I had one woman coaching all of the English events, including journalism and lit crit and the essay contest and prose and poetry. And we are a 4A. We have 860 students on our campus. Our English department has 8 teachers. It didn't make sense to make her do everything. You don't want to overwork the I'll do whatever I can to help person, because they mean it. And they'll be up there every day of the week. But eventually, they're going to get tired. And eventually, you might be the thing that's on the chopping block. Or worse, they feel resentment towards that district and they leave. So you want to have a game plan to try to engage people to join the UIL program as coaches. And that's done through charisma. Okay? I have a lot of people that have joined the UIL program. They have no idea what it is. They didn't go to school in Texas. But they're like, oh, okay, well, Donaldson's fun. This will be easy. Science? Yeah, I mean, I took a science class. And it's like, oh, yeah, you just keep telling yourself that. But you want for people to be willing to work with you. Be honest about what the duties entail, okay? And have an idea of what you're expecting of them. I faced the problem of my first year, I came in and I was like, okay, we're going to have a full team and that's what we're hoping for and it's going to be great. And then I had coaches who did not work with their students and just entered them at the district meet only. And I was sitting there calling my friends, like, I just don't know what this person is doing. I don't know why they think it's okay to just not do their job. Well, I didn't tell them what the job was. I didn't tell them what I expected. And so me ranting on the phone on my 20-minute drive to work does not suddenly make this coach understand what I am expecting of them. So be upfront with them and incentivize working with the UIL team. Hopefully, your program can offer stipends, your district can offer stipends, and if they can't, work really hard with your administration to try to get the ball rolling on that. But stipends, even if you're at a district that pays really well to do UIL academics, are not enough. Because on the one hand, it's either spread out over all of their checks so they never feel it, or on the other hand, it's at the very end of the year in May, and they work towards it, and when they get it, it's like, oh yay, money. I want sleep. And so you want to do little things that can reward your coaches throughout the process to where they feel like they are investing something that they are getting a return value on outside of medals, okay? When is an opportunity for you to stop by and just give them some candy? Or take them out to dinner? Or work with them? Just remind them that what they're doing matters. Because doing that, and you all are sitting there nodding your heads like, yeah, I do like it when I get cookies. Other people are like us too. So if you make your coaches feel like they are enjoying the process, guess what? They probably are enjoying the process and are going to be willing to get up at the school at 5 a.m. to go to a tournament for a contest that only lasts 10 minutes. right? They're going to be willing to give that time and effort. Find ways to reward your coaches throughout the year. So we talked about that. Can you do snacks, parties, go out to dinner somewhere? Remind them that what they are doing matters. And make sure that the kids are doing that too. Okay? We don't want ungrateful kids in our program. And those kids need to understand that these coaches are giving up a lot of time. We don't want to feel like we're not valued. So make sure that your kids and your coaches feel like what they are doing matters and counts. And encourage your coaches to show constant pride for your program. They're your first line of advertising. One of the things that we're doing this year is we are going to put an 11 by 17 poster outside of each of our coaches' doors. And it's going to be designed by our digital design class. And it'll say, ask me about my blank team. Ask me about my state qualifying current events team. Ask me about my district champion CX debate team. Little things like that for these little freshmen that are like, ooh, state champion. I don't know how we advance in this and I don't know what it is, but that's successful. Brag about those scholarship opportunities. Oh, we had this many TILF scholars. That's free money. Oh, well, and they just are suddenly like, this is going to pay for everything in one lump sum. Well, anything helps. Give them those opportunities. Correspond with your coaches often. Don't leave them in the dark. Be organized enough to let them know what is happening. Tournament entries, tournament deadlines, who needs to come to a tournament, what's coming up, goals, anything about payment, anything about a kid that you're sharing. Talk to them often. Do it via email so you have a written record of it. But I always think it's super important after we've finalized everything via email, I print out the email and physically go up to them and check one last time. Are you sure these are the entries you want? Do you remember that this kid is going to have to go to current events first and then show up here? Right? We need to talk about that and be upfront because in some of those decisions, like with entries, that's money. Okay? That's stuff that you're potentially losing out on money-wise or medal-wise just because you're not organized. And so having those two lines of communication via email and then following up in person will really, really help you avoid those problems. Up front, you want to coordinate your season and you want to be ready to go. So you want to make a decision on how many tournaments or scrimmages or workshops or anything UIL or anything speech and debate you're interested in going to early on. Like in the summer, you want to figure out what is your goal. I want to do 3 things in the fall and I want to do 3 things in the spring. Or I want us to go every single weekend. What is it? I want my debaters to go to 10 tournaments, but I want to get 3 solid UIL academic tournaments. Whatever you want to come up with, figure it out early on, and then go to Joy of Tournaments or any other, the UIL website, and figure out what will fit in your schedule to fit those needs. So Waco is in a really good area that we're kind of close to everything, but also kind of not around anything. So everything is accessible to us if we're willing to go an hour or anything else. So all my West Texas people are like, oh, an hour, that'd be great. And so I need to come up with my plan. What is my parameter? Like, I am not willing to take my academic team on a bus for 3 hours if we're not going to regionals. That's not fair to them. That is where my line in the sand is. So I know when I'm consulting, oh, great, there's a tournament at Bay City this weekend. Well, that's not close for us. And so I might not take those kids there, right? And you have to be willing to meet those goals. This next one I cannot stress enough. It is your job to early on build a schedule that accommodates conflicts, athletics, band. One I found out about this year that I forgot about, the SAT and the ACT. All of those extracurricular events and your testing calendar, because you want to do your best to build a schedule that avoids major conflicts early on and saves your headaches later. We like to believe that kids are on top of their schedules when they're involved in more than one thing. Once in a blue moon they are. The planner is an archaic artifact that I don't see very much anymore, and my kids don't know how calendars work. And so I get to have a lot of conversations with the drill team coach and with the band directors, okay? So I try to bypass all of that. I just make a schedule that I'm like, okay, in October, the band has a contest every single weekend. I know that because they're prepping for UIL. So that means I really need to avoid October, or I'm going to lose all my band kids. Well, at China Spring, band is a religion, and we have a very strong band program. So 1, 2/3 of my program are in the band, and 2, band is very successful, and it's not fair for me to hurt the band just so that we can go to another practice tournament. Like, I make that decision for myself, okay? Compromising with another coach in our world, 9 times out of 10 means that the other kid goes to their activity and we get nothing in return. So you want to try to bypass that by just coming up with a schedule that avoids the majority of those conflicts. Now, small school people, that's really, really hard. And that might alter how many tournaments you go to. But what you do is you come up with a plan for how many tournaments do you want those kids to go to? How many tournaments do they have to go to? Is your have and want, are they the same thing? Because it might not be feasible for it to be. It just might not be. And you have to be willing to have that conversation. Have a clear and upfront discussion with your kids and your coaches about what is expected of them travel-wise, okay? What is the process for them to negotiate it with you? This coming year, I will have a debate class for novices, and I will have a debate class for my varsity team, okay? My JV class is not required to travel. My varsity class, and they have been told upfront prior to enrolling, is required to attend 1 tournament per semester. And then my administration says, no, you can't punish them if they can't come after school. So I said, okay, fine. If they don't come, then they get a really, really, really tough final exam. So now they're going to want to come, right? And then I also added, by the way, we're hosting a fall tournament and a spring tournament, so they don't really have to go that far. Like, I'm trying everything I can to make those kids meet those needs. But if I have a student that just absolutely cannot go on the weekends, which I've had, they know there is an alternative and they can still stay involved somehow. They know they'll never be able to travel, they'll never be able to compete, but they're still a part of the team because they sure are filing extemp files. They sure are part of the team because they really are helping organizing and critiquing journalism prompts and responses, okay? So you want to be able to do that. Keep your budgets separate, like all your codes, keep them separate and organized, and always do the math the moment that you put in a purchase order request so that you understand how much money you have to play with. You want to be super, super sweet to your business office because you will tell yourself that you'll never need a miracle, and I go through approximately 3 a week. Like, Chris Skinner is just a gift to me because when I email her and say, hey, about that check, I need it yesterday, and she's like, okay, I'll make it work. So you want to have a good working relationship with them. You also, when you are sweet to them, they are willing to perform those miracles. If you make it seem like, well, hey, you didn't give me my check on time. Well, hey, you're not going to get the next one on time either. What are you going to do about it? Like, they have the check-cutting powers. You do not. So be sweet to people. Do your best to budget your year up front. Like, I knew going into last year that we were going to need to buy laptops and printers for computer applications. So I did the math. How much money is computer applications about to take away from my program? Like, okay. I cried a little and then I moved on, right? You want to understand what are your costs. And then sometimes we walk into something and we're like, oh, I don't have black binders for interp. I don't have the laptops for debate. I don't have anything like tubs for extemp. Even if we wanted to go paper, I couldn't put it anywhere. And also, we don't have a bus. I need to buy a bus or whatever it is. And so you need to understand, well, okay, interp has to have the black binders. Like, they need them. So that is my first priority. How can we do debate if we're going by paper? You figure out what you need to do. Do you expect for your students to buy anything in your program? Sometimes we have to. Sometimes we do. I know a really common thing in the debate world is you have to provide your own timer because I'm tired of losing them and they're expensive, right? That's something that's manageable. But if they need to pay anything else, if they need to pay dues to be a part of your program, if they need to pay for tournament entry fees, that you need to be upfront with them about that because there are a lot of kids that can't do that necessarily. And if that's the case, how can you work around that to keep that kid involved in your program? If you don't have enough money, advocate for your kids. Fight for your program. If you are willing to sit there and say, oh yeah, everything's great, principal such and such, then principal such and such isn't going to give you more money. Sometimes you have to go in and say like, hey, we are doing the best as we can and we are pedaling as fast as we can. But I cannot change the fact that this school in our district has a travel budget that is 4 times as large as ours. We can continue to pedal as fast as we can, but chances are we won't beat them. And if you talk in absolutes like that, your administrators are like, well, he said trophies, so I'm listening now. And that will help. You have to be polite about it. Like, you can't go in there and like kick the door down and say, well, I'm the captain now and here's what we're going to do here. But you do want to advocate for your program when you're able to. So my little secret is that I have just an unnecessary number of budgets. That's not like, oh, I have so much money, like, here's $3 in an account. have fun with it. And they keep all of them open. And I'm like, why? This is so difficult. So I created a spreadsheet that I have the name of the account number, and then this section over here, I put how much money I have remaining in it. And anytime I put a purchase order request in, I update this in that section. So if I buy something out of my journalism classroom supplies, I subtract like, oh, I started with $500 in there, and I just spent $100 on printer ink, so now I update this column to say $400. That math, I then cross-reference with an activity account or a budget account reading that they give me, so I make sure that I'm never going to go in the red. I feel like I probably have before and they haven't told me, but I don't want to know what it's like to go in the red, and I just imagine that they take it out of my check, so I get really scared, and sometimes I wake up in the night in cold sweats. So doing this has helped me avoid that. And what I do is I keep it posted somewhere, so mine is on my computer monitor, and I see it anytime I'm working on a purchase order request. You want to make sure they pull the money out of the right account. I learned the hard way that sometimes I was putting in for things to come out of the UIL student travel account, which has a large amount of money in it, but they were taking it out of the UIL teacher travel account, which has a not so large amount of money in it, and they were like, hey, you can't go to this tournament because that is going to take $1,000 more than you have. I'm like, why? Where did the money go? And so sometimes you have to double check them. Parent involvement is something that I am still working on. You want to decide early on if you want to have a booster club or you want to have a parent volunteer force. Do you want parents to work with you? Do you want parents to work with your program? So there is no such thing as too much help. That's a really big deal. Like, there is something that parents can do for you. And you can decide, I am a micromanager, and so I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, yeah, well, you can run the tab room or something. Like, no, you can make the website. No. You can go pick up the breakfast burritos. And parents are okay with that. If you're up front, they want a job, give them a job. Let them feel like they are part of it because they are sharing their child with you and they don't have to. So you want them to feel like they are really a part of your program. I will say that I found out this year when I was trying to organize my parents that apparently booster clubs, like calling it a booster club, comes with set guidelines and policies and financial restrictions. And I was like, I don't know how that works. So we had a parent volunteer force that didn't have to do all of those. In our district, parent volunteer forces, booster clubs, they can fundraise nonstop as many times as they want all year long. In our district, each extracurricular activity can only fundraise once per semester. So the benefit of organizing something through the parents is that you can continuously work on fundraisers and things like that to bring your program money. Communicate with your parents deliberately and often. That comes in multiple ways. A schedule for a tournament. How late you're going to be back that night because you said it was going to be 9 o'clock and it's 11 o'clock and round 5 is starting or whatever it is, right? You want to keep them in the loop of everything. Don't ever make your parents feel like they're just shoving their children off into the dark school and then they come back eventually and sometimes they have medals but they're always really tired and smell like Whataburger. Like, don't let them feel like there is an air of mystery to it. Keep them in the loop. Send home positive postcards to show how your students are doing. So I started this year. I wrote a letter that was a template to all of my kids, all of my parents, and I sent it home over Christmas break. And it was a template, like it had the same opening and closing paragraph, but the middle paragraph I put, this is your child's win-loss record. They did really well, and then like the IEs, I was like, they did really well at this tournament where they took first place or second place. And I had some kids that weren't that good. And so I said, they have made an improvement in this area. And I sent that home, hand-signed it, and it comes home as a letter, and they were like, wow, I guess that Donaldson character actually is working with you. And so that takes time on our end, and so I waited to tackle it until Christmas break, but I got a lot of compliments from parents on doing that. Oh no, oh gosh. Okay, we're good. Don't be afraid to delegate jobs to your parents. A lot of them are on the ground. The on-the-ground work can be handled by them. At my tournament, my mom ran our hospitality room, which was super helpful. They can help you maybe coordinating the ballot table. They can help you in other ways too, fundraising, activities. Sometimes they just are in the community and they just know people. And you don't ask questions, but they show up and it's like, here are some breakfast tacos. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you. And that's okay. So you want to use your parents for that on-the-ground work. And you let your parents feel like they are just involved in the success of your program as you and your students are, because they are. Maybe have at your awards night something that recognizes your top parent volunteer, okay? Really celebrate that because they will get behind your program. So recruitment is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's something that I think that we can all work on. So you want to recruit kids often, and you want to team up with everybody on campus to help you do that. So talk to your counselors, talk to your athletic coaching staff, your band director, your department chairs. Who are the kids that would be good? Okay? Don't be afraid to go with the first stereotype. So when we think of a UIL academic contest, we want the smart kids, because the smart kids can study hard and they can take tests and score really high. So check out those AP and honor classes. Look for the top 10% kids. Try to get them involved. But I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes. That's where they only look. Embrace the opposite of what you are expecting. My speech and debate program is like overwhelmingly not top 10%, not top quartile kids. And they do really well. And they work really hard. Okay? Pick kids that wouldn't be your traditional academic competition students, because sometimes kids just need to find their thing, and that gets them out of trouble. And that boosts their grades. And that makes them feel, their parents see a turnaround in their behavior at the house, okay? Don't think that just because a kid has one ISS sentence on their record, that they are just untouchable. Because every other program on campus is probably thinking that too. Be willing to open the door and work with those kids. And don't go with your first stereotype either about what types of kids should do what types of events. My prose and poetry team, where everybody thinks go to the theater and get the thespians, is made up of a large set of large football players who have never done anything like that before, but they sure are charismatic. Pick kids that you like, not because they're good, but because you're willing to spend time with them, because you will be spending a lot of time with them, and the annoying kids become really annoying when you're in the car with them heading to a tournament, okay? So be aware of that, and come up with what you can do to work with all different types of kids. So let's look at some examples. My precious babies. So this kid right here wants to be a journalist. He's very open about it. He's always wanted to be a journalist, and he takes no English electives. I don't even think he's in honors English classes, but by golly, he is going to be a newspaper journalist. So when I found out he wanted to be a journalist, well, it's almost like we have 4, now 5 kind of contests that can work there. So now he's on my UIL journalism team. These kiddos were super involved their freshman year, but we went to CX State this year and we decided to do this revolutionary thing and have fun. And so we went and played laser tag, and then they're dropping band, which I'm like, all right. Because they had fun participating in my program. And this boy over here is a hot mess. He only ever did sports. He threw, he played football, he was one of those kids that played on the freshman basketball team and then learned that maybe hoops wasn't his place. But then one day he came up to me and he said, hey, Mr. Donaldson, I want to do that thing where you read with the funny voices. And Colton was a regional qualifier in prose this year. In that really tough interp district I told you all about, because these kids were willing to work and they didn't fit the stereotype of what you would expect. So now we're moving on to presents. The first is to make a connection. The easiest way to get kids invested in your program is for them to view you as someone who is approachable. It's easy for me because I'm really young and annoying. And so they're like, hey, I could beat him up so I can probably ask him a question. But charisma goes a long way. And so if you're the fun teacher, or if you're the really strict teacher that they find out has a fun side, then they're like, ooh, challenge accepted. Let's go. And so you want to find a balance between being the fun and cool teacher and being an organized coach. Because I found out really hard that sometimes when you're goofing off and having a whole lot of fun, you're like, oh, wait, I left the check for the hotel in Waco, and now we're here. Or my personal favorite of, we're at CX State, and I just booked the hotel for the wrong weekend, and it's South by Southwest in Austin. And, okay. It worked out, but not without a lot of sweating and profanities. Make as many attempts as possible to see the kids outside of the classrooms and at tournaments, okay? I have a personal rule that I go to one of everything. I am not a sports person. Marching contests are boring. I said it. I don't understand ag. But those kids matter. And if they're willing to give up their time for me, I should be willing to give up my time for them. Now, I'll admit, I cheated on baseball and I was like, hey, I'm here, okay, bye. But I went to a lot of basketball games. I went to a track and cross country meet. And those kiddos are like, we just run. Well, when you're running, you're a winner for me. You ran your way into my heart, kiddo. And so they see me at at these events, and they're like, well, the UIL coach cares. And then you start bumping up in the list of favorite sponsors, because like, well, coach doesn't come to see me when I'm taking my number sense test. Well, like, there's some reasons for that, but talk to the kids about their interests. And I struggle with that sometimes. Sometimes I go in to talk to a kid, I'm like, so, math. And they're like, that's not a discussion. You just said a word that is a subject area. But if I find out that the kid likes video games, or if I find out that the kid likes fishing, I don't know anything about those things, but he's going to tell me about it. And he is going to be invested in it. Create a framework that allows for your program to be unique from everything else on campus. What are your traditions that you offer that makes UIL or speech and debate what it is? So we have traditions, and we do things to make connections. We stop at Whataburger anytime a Whataburger is available on the way back from a tournament. The kids are like, please, no more patty melts, and I'm like, just get some chicken then. And so we do that. And anytime we are going to a state tournament or we get to leave school, we stop at Cracker Barrel for breakfast. That's just what we do. A lot of my traditions are food-oriented. I'm a very simple person. One thing that everybody can do that's really easy is I get all of my speech and debate kids, not the whole UIL team, but just my speech kiddos together at prom, and we take a picture of them at prom. And that becomes my desktop that the kids see in my prof com classes and in my journalism class, just when my computer is on, and they're like, oh, hey, he cares about us outside of like the few medals that we get. And then I went to a cross-country meet, which, there again, fun fact, nobody goes to, so if you go, you are a hero. And this computer apps kiddo, who is a beast at cross-country, like is a walk-on at college, felt so validated that his little UIL coordinator, not coach, like they turn computers on, I don't really know what they do after that, but that I cared enough to be there, and that made a difference, and that turned around how hard he worked for my program. So make a connection. Make sure that UIL doesn't feel like a chore to your team. Find things that you can do to celebrate them. Tournaments are long and can be overwhelming, so I give them a snack box. That's expensive, I found out, because kids can eat quite a bit, especially when your inter team is made up of football boys. But that gives them something to do other than relying on spending money at a concession stand. And it's never anything healthy. It's like, oh yes, more Pringles, consume. But it gives them an opportunity. Sometimes I reimburse myself, and sometimes I look at my travel account and I'm like, well, it looks like I'm gonna cut this out of my personal fried chicken account and the kids will get to eat snacks. And that's an important decision. It seems like every organization on the planet at this point has an end-of-year banquet. At China Spring, every sport, individual sport, has a banquet. I think our jazz band has a different banquet than our regular band. Like, we are a really big banquet school. So I decided this year, you know what, UIL is going to have a banquet, and the kids collectively groaned. And I said, you know what, UIL is going to have a cookout. So we had a banquet, and it was inside the commons area, and I strictly told the kids, you will not dress up. Come as casual as you want. And they bought tickets, and they had hamburgers and chips and sweet tea, and we had a cake, and there was no speeches, and we gave out some awards, and they were like, well, this is the best thing. We were in and out in an hour and 15 minutes, and their parents were like, absolutely, very good idea, and they were like, the UIL banquet's the best. And so next year, we expect to have a bigger and a better and a more organized banquet because it was such a big and exciting thing. Don't make it formal. Kids don't want to dress up. Make it fun. Give awards. Everybody will have a good time. Have a scholarship. Find a way, if you can, at all. My first year at China Spring, we have an activity account, and just off of like tournament entry dues that I charged, we had a little bit of money. So I kind of looked at that money and then looked at my couch cushions and got some change, and we were able to give one $250 scholarship to a graduating senior. Okay, that's not a lot. Like, when I went to UT, that would have bought most of my art history book. One. But it was more, it rewarded them, and it gave them something to work for. And that set a framework for us to continue doing that. So this year, we hosted a fall speech and debate tournament. We used all that money to try to fund scholarships. And we were able to. So this year, we were able to offer 6 scholarships. And the lowest one was $250. And the highest one, we tiered them, was $600. Because I stressed, I was like, well, I can give each of the kids, and I asked my number sense coach to do quick math, X number of dollars, but how do I, balance this girl who traveled every weekend in speech and debate to this girl who went to 2 tournaments for science, but she worked really hard and she placed. That doesn't mean she wasn't working. And so what I did is I had them fill out applications, and then we did a panel of 5 judges. I was one of them because I could judge their application and what I knew about them. And then I contacted other UIL coordinators and debate coaches. I got Amy Kasperzik from Blooming Grove. I got the coach from Waco Conley, who is in our district. I got the coach from Waco High School, which is in our town, but never going to compete against us because they're a huge school. And I got the coach from Kaufman, who we saw at tournaments but didn't see them a whole lot. And they all ranked them, just like this was a prose or poetry round. And then we put it in the Joy of Tournament software, and we set it to try to do your best to make it the UIL panel sorting system. And then it ranked them out, and that's how we tiered these. So whereas one kid on here might have been my 6, and this happened, another judge thought that they were the 2. And that shaked out, and I think that that was the most equitable thing to do. So that's just an idea. Try to give them a scholarship. You want to build a community, and the hardest thing in the world is admitting that you have areas that you are not the best in. What areas are you weak at, and are you willing to accept help in those areas? I coach all of speech and debate and journalism, and we do NSDA and UIL, and so I like to play pretend that I know stuff about public forum debate, and I don't. And I like to play pretend that because I did news writing in high school that means I can coach feature writing, and it doesn't. Fun fact, they're different. And so I had to admit, I need some help in some stuff. And I am like an egotistical 23-year-old who has a lot of pep and doesn't like admitting when he's wrong. And so I made connections with other coaches. Talk to coaches in your district, in your region, in your town, that you just see at state and you'll never see again. Be friendly with them, talk on Facebook, or not, but have good, strong professional relationships with them and ask for help. If you have the money to do it, look for consultants that can work with you one time for a workshop or more consistently on a full-time basis. Look for camp opportunities to send your kids. I'm sending 3 journalists to journalism camp in Lubbock, which is not close for us, but they are so excited because nobody ever told them that their interest had something that they could look into doing. Seek help from unusual places. We have a local accountant who is a parent of a kid not in UIL, but that I'm friends with, that's like, I want to come and work with the accounting team. I'm like, well, you know more about accounting than I do, and so we're off to a good start, okay? Or somebody that works in computer science in that field. What can they do to teach your students? Read your prose pieces to custodians. One of the things that I'm starting is that my interpreters have to go and read to the theater teacher. Oh, that's a given. The English teacher, that's a given. And the math teacher. And then you have to find a football coach. And then you have to do this. Because everybody has something to say. Everybody can give you some sort of feedback. And that builds a community for your kids to be invested in. So I was able to send, in my first year at China Spring, 6 kids to speech and debate camp. We went to the championship debate group at Concordia. And they learned a ton, and they had a really good time. And they came back and they were more successful because they went there. And we worked really hard to make that happen. We fundraised and so on and so forth. And then also, I'm a really big believer on getting workshops and consultants. So my interpreters were not doing very well. And they heard me saying the same things over and over and over again. And they weren't listening. And so I hired Philip Taylor from Fort Bend ISD. And then on a separate occasion, Amy Kasperzik from Blooming Grove to come in and talk to them. And 90% of what Philip and Amy said was the same thing, but it just made sense when Philip and Amy said it. You know, that was my favorite. Well, you know, Miss K has a master's degree and you don't, Mr. Donaldson. Well, okay, there you go. That's fine. That'll work, okay? I know nothing about journalism, and so Julie Holloway from Grandview is fantastic and amazing, and everybody should be her best friend. And I hired her to come in and work with my journalism team, and they swear up and down that she is their coach. Like, they mutiny on me. I said, hey, if you keep messing up, you're going to hurt my feelings. They were like, well, I don't care. You're not Miss Holloway. And I was like, well, okay. Thank you. And then at CX State, I needed a judge, so I hired Logan Kelly, who is at Texas Tech. And he came in from Lubbock and worked with my CXers throughout the tournament. And because of him, we were able to get one of my teams, a little sophomore team who wasn't at state the year before, to break to octafinals. Because they worked with him and made that connection. So you want to make those networking connections with people in your community and in these events. Transparency is key, so you have an open dialogue with your coaches and your administrators about what you're doing. What decisions are you making and why are you making them? What would the benefit be? After the decision, follow up. I tell my administrator everything because he doesn't understand sometimes. And so if I tell him, that means that I've done my due diligence. Sometimes we make decisions to tell them to ask for permission, and sometimes we make decisions to ask for forgiveness later. Okay? It's a risky gamble, so don't mess up. But keep your administrators in the loop because they'll value it. Okay? I just said that. Be aware of your administrators because sometimes they like to micromanage, and that's okay and can be really beneficial in some areas and really frustrating in others. So play to what they are interested in doing. If you have an administrator that feels that at every UIL activity they need to be there and they need to announce all the awards at UIL district when you host it, well, okay, you can. That doesn't hurt me. Maybe my ego, maybe the kids want to hear my voice, but it's okay that he does that, okay? And sometimes administrators are your best friend. There are tons of administrators that when you host the academic district meet, they're the ones in the tab room. And that's awesome. Get them involved. Talk to them often. Let your administrators feel like they're actively involved in the UIL team. Keep them in a loop and they'll appreciate it. I give my administrators shirts. I give my administrators free tickets to our banquet. I let them in on the scholarship process. I do all of these things because that makes it feel like I'm coming to them. And one, that's showing off. We are doing so much at UIL. And it is doing so many good things for students. But also, look at what you're helping me do. Because you're signing my paycheck and letting me do it. And that's important. One of the coolest things that I was able to do is that I have an administrator that is really big in using a Cricut and has like not an Etsy store, but like a low-key Etsy store. And we got backpacks for our laptops for debate. And they were super cool, but then we were losing them. I was like, this must end, these are expensive. And so I went to her and I was like, hey, can you design something for our backpacks? And so she did. And she made a logo for us. And then she put a number on them on each of the bags and each of the laptops. So they know to put their laptop in that bag. And if we, for some reason, are at a tournament and leave it behind, for instance, at the University of Texas at Austin, at CX State, where you decide to leave things in an open building overnight, we were able to pick it back up, okay? So these laptop bags were designed by Mrs. Howard. They match our laptops and they keep track of each of the computers, so they're functional, but also they just look really cool. And we get a lot of compliments, and so I kind of am like, oh yeah. That was a good idea, wasn't it? So it's just a little thing that lets her feel involved with the program, and she is, and that helps our program. So what are ways that you can use your administrators in those capacities? You want to make your team feel like home. We talked about the importance of recruiting and all the different ways you can tackle it, but let's entertain the wonderful idea. We have too many. What? That happens? Well, sometimes maybe. So it's easy for us to make the decision to cut the leftover kids because we don't have the money for them. Or because we don't want to travel them, we don't have the room on the bus. But I think it's really important that the UIL team feel like a home to everyone who is willing to put in the work. I have some kids that will never place at a journalism competition. They just won't, okay? But doing UIL journalism is helping them work on their skills so that maybe they can pass their STAR test. And they are working and they are answering those prompts and they're finishing those prompts in the time limit allowed. And they want to be successful. So who am I to keep that student? Well, you don't win, so you don't get to do this because we only want winners. They know they won't be able to go to district. But that doesn't mean I don't invite them. They're my third or fourth alternate, and that's okay. They are a part of my team. Consider having a JV team. Because one day they might be your varsity. We had just this huge interest in our math teams this year. Like, it was bizarre because I don't know math, but we had like literally 12 kids vying for spots on our math, number sense, and calculator teams. And they were all showing up to practice and they were all wanting to go to tournaments. And so my math coach was really kind of stressing about this, but she was able to take all their scores to have the strongest math team possible. And most of the kids that didn't make the team are freshmen that were scoring really high already. So they're going to jump on board next year to fill those spots of those graduating seniors, and hopefully we aren't going to be hurt as bad. We had one student who wasn't able to compete in any other activity at all in their high school career because of an injury that they had prior to getting into high school. They had a brain injury that impaired their mobility. Like, there was a lot of things that prevented this student from competing, but they were good at mental math. And so they joined the number sense team their senior year. Never placed, but rode the bus with us, competed, got to talk to other students, got to work with other people, and that kid gets to say that they competed in an extracurricular activity that would have never been open to them if I had just said, well, you're not going to be good enough, so you're not on the team. Make your team feel like a home. Now set boundaries though, because just like a home, you don't want to have a bad roommate. So if I have a kid that's like, well, I'm going to show up and do UIL when I feel like it, and I'll read poetry when I want to, but if I don't, I'm not coming to practice. Well, you don't get to decide you're going to pay rent this month or not. Cut the toxic attitude. It's better to get rid of the person than just have the poison there, but they're an entry, okay? And I've done that. I've had varsity level kiddos that decided that they knew more than me, or that their ideas were better and that I didn't know what I was talking about, and we had a hard talk, and then they decided that UIL wasn't for them, and I said, oh dear, darn, good. And that helped my program so much because then my team connected and bonded without that negativity. So I had a lot of kids that wanted to do debate that couldn't travel, and they wanted to do partner debate, but fun fact, CX has to travel a lot, and if you can't, you're not going to be a good CXer. So we started a PFD team. And my first year there, they couldn't go to any tournaments, but I got a school that was prepping for NSDA Nationals, and they sent their public forum debaters to my school at the very end of the year, and we scrimmaged them. And those kids got to debate. No other time did they get to do it. But they got to be on the team and actually compete and get ballots and do it the right way that time. And that was awesome. I set up scrimmages all the time. I have a CX team that's going to be terrible. They're not going to be very good. That's all right. They can be a punching bag for one round because I can't fit them in the car to go every single weekend to all of our CX tournaments. And that makes them feel like they are a part of the team because they are, and they're improving from scrimmage to scrimmage to scrimmage. So the last thing is networking. You want to be proud of your program because it's doing a lot. Advertise it as much as you possibly can. So social media is a great tool. Facebook is most accessible. Most people use it, but Twitter engages your younger people more often. Some people use Instagram, and I can't figure out how to mobilize that in a school way. So Twitter and Facebook, I think, are safe. Team up with your district press person and do as much as you possibly can. And also use the traditional news media to show off. Your TV news, your local radio station, local newspapers, they are great resources. Brag about your kids to your community and everyone else. So here are some examples. The Waco Conley coach in journalism that is like amazingly awesome retired this year after taking a kid to state 4 years in a row, which had never been done at Conley. And so our local newspaper published a wonderful, just tear-jerking story about how Alyssa and Miss Crater had been together for so long, and Alyssa was just one of her many accomplishments in her time at Conley High School. Well, tons of people read the Waco Trib and they don't know anything about it, but they're like, dang, that teacher is good and that kid is impressive. So that's bragging about them. I started a Facebook page and I just update at tournaments, and I got really good about it in the second semester because I was really bad in the first semester. And so I post a lot and it gets shared a lot. Like I shared our results at CX State when we had that octofinalist team, and for a page that only had like 90 people following it, that individual post had like 90 likes. So this stuff goes viral. Even if it's just in your small community, you can advertise everything that you're doing and make people take stock in what your program is doing. If they're willing to follow countless football updates of a losing season, then they will be just excited to hear what this whole computer science thingy's doing. That sounds real neato. The social studies team, right on. Right? Advertise it, make it cool, put up posters, brag about it, trophies everywhere, and pictures that will really show that this is worth it. So, do we have any questions? Are there anything that you want to know? Anything that we can do to make this a little bit better for y'all? Nothing? Was I that brilliant? Because I like to believe it. And like I said,